So good evening to me and good morning to Michael Bernal. Michael is an embodiment coach and he does a lot of work on the inner child. And I love what Michael does and I watch him a lot on Instagram. And I think he's got a wonderful, wonderful message to share. And Michael, thank you for being here and sharing this moment with me. I'll hand the floor to you. And if you wouldn't mind giving us an introduction to the man behind the moves.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Lindsay. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on here. Yeah, so I can tell you a little bit more about what I do. I'm an embodiment coach, and I typically work with men, and I focus on themes such as inner child healing, inner child work, sacred play, and sacred sexuality. I feel these are all interwoven and interconnected. And I like to start with the inner child and the sacred play,
Okay.
especially for men. I feel that men in today's age they don't make time for play. It's all work
Mm-hmm.
and it's very structured. And I love to facilitate and create a space where men feel safe, that they can play and be seen, so that their inner child can be nurtured. So anything that may be blocking or holding them back from realizing their dreams or their passions or their purpose in life can be manifested through these healing modalities.
Wow, 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 wow. That's so powerful and it resonates so much with my own journey. But we're here for you. And I'd like to ask you, how can we go back a few years, like childhood, where you came from, and what led you onto this path?
Okay, let's see. How
As far
back do
back
you want?
as far back as you want to go. It's your stage.
Okay, let's see. So I was born in Miami, Florida. My parents are Colombian. So I'm of Colombian heritage. I speak Spanish. I speak English. Um, yeah, I think as an early child, I was always a very outgoing child and always wanting to connect with people. My mom would tell me stories. I truly don't remember these. Um, and now looking at it hindsight, I see that as a child, I never really played. Like I can't remember playing.
Wow.
I don't know if that's because I didn't or because I don't have the memories of them. I mean, I used to play sports and of course I used to play with my friends, but I mean like really authentically play like how I do
Mm-hmm,
now, where
mm-hmm,
I'm getting on the floor, I'm crawling, I'm curious. So there seems to be some sort of blockage there that I am
mm-hmm,
not
mm-hmm.
remembering that. And then looking back, for a big majority of my life, I've always said that I've had an amazing childhood and that I was privileged and that everything I wanted, I got.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started doing the inner child work and the shadow work, this was before I became an embodiment coach. I started realizing that I felt that I didn't get the love that I deserved from my parents. I felt that I wasn't seen. I felt that I was the outcast of the family, the black sheep. I felt that I couldn't relate to them. So with that, I see where lots of this stems from. This idea that of not being seen and not getting the love I deserve is now being manifested within me, where my inner child feels like it needs love, and if I neglect that, then I'm causing harm to myself. And if I honor that, then this is the first step towards healing. Um, yeah, when I went to college. I went to college just to be with my friends, pretty much. I had no idea what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be. I ended up having abusive relationships with like alcohol and weed, just like overindulging every day, partying. I had a full ride to the university, and I just had no interest in learning that way. I had no interest. I was doing business. I had no interest in it at all. And after 2.5 years, I dropped out and I found the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, which is the largest nutrition school in the world, and they're based out of New York City. And I did it online, and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Like, this is what I want to do. I want to be a health coach. And this was when I was 20 years old, so 10 years ago. And yeah, I was just like fascinated by the idea of helping people, and I felt like a calling for that. I graduated, I got a few clients, and then I just felt like kind of like the thing we were talking before we started, just like this idea that I wasn't ready. I need to learn more. I'm doing my clients an injustice by not going deeper in the path. So I stopped that, and yeah, I stopped being a health coach. I was when I was 21, and went through a few trials and tribulations in my life. And when I was 25, I ended a serious relationship. I thought we were going to get married. I proposed. She said yes. Ended up not getting married. And that was the catalyst for me dropping everything. I had a six-figure income job, and I wasn't satisfied with it. I hated it in reality, and it was working with my dad, and I
Wow.
I didn't like it. I did not necessarily the relationship with my dad, which is a whole nother story, but the job itself. I was a home inspector, and so I quit, and I saw how everyone was just traveling the world and living nomadically, and living off the land and volunteering. So I got in my car, I sold all my items, and I started traveling.
Wow.
And that started when I was 25, 26, so 4 years ago. And I've actually been nomadic till about 7 months ago, 8 months ago. So I was nomadic for like 4 years. And in that time, I knew that I had to do lots of healing from my relationships, in particular, from that relationship that didn't work out. And I found Vipassana meditation. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
The what? Sorry. The
Vipassana.
Vipassana. Okay. No. No.
Vipassana
Okay.
meditation. So it's an ancient meditation taught by the Buddha. It's Buddhism,
Okay.
and this is taught by Asen Goenka. He's a teacher that's been teaching it for over 50 years. He's unfortunately not with us anymore. And so it's a 10-day course, and you're in silence the whole time, and you're learning this one specific meditation
Wow.
routine, practice technique,
Mm-hmm.
and that changed my life. Like, poof, like nothing else. I had meditated before, but never with that structure, never with that clarity, never with that compassion and love. So that was another catalyst that allowed me to start having a daily meditation practice. And I've almost had a daily meditation practice since then, so 4 years now, except for like a 6-month span where I stopped. And then yeah, meditation led to meeting other people, and then I ended up living at a Tibetan meditation center for a year. I thought like, hey, I've traveled enough. I want to, I want to reach enlightenment is what I thought.
Wow. Wow.
and there was also a girl that I was interested in, and she was living at the center, so that was a catalyst as well. So seeing how much love and relationships is intertwined into my life. And actually today the person who was doing the soul oracle reading for me told me that my purpose is to build partnerships, to create partnerships, both in an intimate and in a general aspect of like building community and partnerships. um yeah, and it wasn't until COVID that it just hit me. Like, I was not happy with my life. I wasn't happy with my relationship. I knew that I wasn't living my dream, and I knew that coaching was going to be that. So I went on an intense self-growth journey. I joined Mind Valley,
Okay.
which is do you know Mind Valley?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I joined Mind Valley. I started taking a whole bunch of courses. I started reading books. I started applying all the practices I learned at the meditation center and try to make them more relatable and more pragmatic for myself. And yeah, I just knew that I had to do that. I joined the men's circle. I was invited into a beautiful space for men, and that kind of stirred up the idea that I would best benefit working with men. Um, and yeah, I joined Kaboom Coaching, which is coaching. It's a business coaching course designed by Preston Smiles and Zion
Yes,
Kim.
yes, yes.
And yeah, and the rest is history. And I've been coaching since then, since first, particularly with this mindset for about 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
But like I said, I've been coaching my whole life. I've
Yes,
been kind of not paying attention to it, not
absolutely.
following that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for that openness and vulnerability, Michael. It's really admirable to hear and to hear you share such deep, intimate stuff. I'd like to ask you, going back a little bit, would you say there was a moment in your childhood, growing up, adolescence, where you felt this calling for spirituality and to heal yourself and others? Was there something that
Hmm.
you could, because do you believe that it starts somewhere, or is it just, do you believe it's growing in us, or do you believe it just maybe happens overnight, something triggers in us? Maybe that's a better question.
That's a very good question. Actually, it's funny because you said that, you asked the question, and my mind just whoosh, went to like search for something.
Uh-huh.
And I actually remember being a child and going to church every Sunday with my parents. And I didn't really like going to church,
Mm-hmm.
but the church that we went to was very, um, they had a big focus on the music.
Okay.
So the music was very like lively, and like there was guitars and very, it was animated, and it was spiritual, it was lively, like
Uh-huh.
it brought something up in me that I didn't realize till we went to another church and it didn't have that aspect, how much I missed that. So this is just coming off of my head right now, like the
Please.
idea that yeah, that music and that kind of like spirits in action, uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
embodied through music, was something that even to this day, I mean, part of my biggest thing with my practices is movement and dance. Like I think that all three of those things, like the inner child, the sacred play, and the sacred sexuality, are all intertwined with movement and dance. And if you can
Mm-hmm.
get embodied and in touch with your body through movement, that there can be so much healing. Um,
Definitely.
and to expand on that question, I think, yeah, I think it's I think our innate being is always searching to connect with its divine nature. It's always searching for spirits. In every action we do, we just are not aware of it at all times. So yeah, I'm sure there was lots of things in my childhood that I can't remember right now that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
were catalysts, or like a, oh wow, yeah, I really want to be connected spiritually, or I want to serve others, I want to connect with others. But I can't think of a specific one except that thing that just came up about the music in church.
Okay. And thank you so much. Um, I'd like to ask you, what was your biggest conflict within yourself? What's the challenge you faced the most?
Hmm. I would say it's imposter syndrome.
Okay.
Do you know what that is?
Yes. Yeah, but please explain for the viewers. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so this like I like to categorize it, or I like to explain it as like self-doubt in something that you are good at.
Mm-hmm.
And so you feel like you're an imposter. You feel like
Mm-hmm.
you're not living up to your standards or living up to your gifts. And I think it's like that fluctuation of emotions and self-doubt, that's my biggest challenge. And again, that goes back to the inner child work. I know that's manifested because as a child, I felt that I wasn't seen, or that I didn't receive the love that I wanted from my parents. And now that it's manifested into doubt within myself. So I think that's the biggest challenge, is to take the time to nurture my inner child, to listen to what it is that I need, and yeah, to have faith in myself, like to know that these thoughts are conditioned and they're not my reality.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That was so awesome. Thank you so much for that.
Hmm.
Um, um, may I ask you a little bit about why inner child?
Say that one more time.
I've, may I ask you a little bit more? Ask you to explain a little bit more about why you chose inner child healing. Why this modality?
Yeah. I don't think I did choose it. I mean, I think it's like it's what
I sorry. Yes, yes. It's a
yeah,
calling almost, right?
yeah. I
Okay.
think and I think like everything, all these challenges and obstacles that show up are because that's what I need to work on in this lifetime. So for me, yeah, like I said, just this lack of like not really remembering my childhood, not feeling like I had a childhood, not feeling loved. So kind of just like reclaiming
Yeah.
that childhoodness. And it's for me, yeah, like I said, it's particularly for men. It's just like we're so serious and we're so wound up and we're so caught up in this immature masculine of conditioning that we're made to believe that a strong man is someone who doesn't show emotions and who doesn't cry and who is self-sufficient and doesn't need any help. And these are all concepts that you don't know as a child
Hmm.
at all. Like as a child, you're always in the playground, you're playing with other people, you're playing with other beings, you're connecting, you're curious, um, you're silly. You don't care what other you
Hmm.
haven't gotten that idea of what other people think of you.
Judgment. Hmm.
You're honest. You're honest, you're truthful. Yeah, there's so much about it. It's really fascinating. I think so in particularly I worked in the year that I lived at the meditation center. Our teacher was also a psychotherapist, and he worked a lot with Jungian psychology, Carl Jung,
Okay.
and the 12 archetypes. And all of them can be traced back to the inner child, but in
Okay.
particular, the orphan and the innocent archetype are very either actively in people's lives or repressed in people's lives. And
May I ask you to elaborate a little bit more on those two archetypes, just for
yeah,
for your marketing, so people can understand what it is about them that maybe they need to look at, and it could help bring some insight
perfect.
and awareness to their own inner child.
Perfect. So Carl Jung divided the subpsyche into 12 archetypes, and there's many ways to divide it. I mean, other people do it in 10, other people do it in 13. There's many ways to do it, but the way I was taught it, there's 12 archetypes, and specifically with the orphan, it tends to be the most repressed, and this comes from a feeling of abandonment.
Okay.
Is the key for the orphan, and each archetype has a light side and a shadow side.
Mhm.
So we want to bring the shadow to light because when we are unconscious of these behaviors, then they control us.
Okay.
And when we start becoming conscious of them and transforming them, we can now use their light side.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, so the orphan comes from an early age. So anytime that I felt I wasn't being loved or that I wasn't being heard, the orphan would be activated. It would the orphan archetype also looks for what's that word? I'm drawing a blank right now, but it looks for things to come. It's a confirmation bias. It
Okay.
looks for
Yes.
things to
To valid.
support, to
Yes.
validate and support itself.
Exactly.
So you could have 100 interactions with people, and 99 people can accept you and love you, and one person can reject you. And the orphan archetype within you, that part of your subpsyche, your subconscious, will focus in on that and be like, "See, I'm a piece of shit. I'm not worth anything. See how I'm being rejected." So that's the shadow side. What I like about the orphan archetype, it's especially for Buddhism, it is the recognition of suffering. It can it has perseverance. It knows that suffering is inevitable, that it exists,
Mhm.
and that it can persevere through it. So that would be the light
Okay.
side of it.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
And for me, that's quite strong because that's My wounds are my biggest strength.
Oh, I love that.
So
That's so great.
yeah, so for me, going through this hardship and through these wounds is how I'm able to better serve other beings because I have been through the experience and I can relate to them. If I didn't have these wounds and these experiences, then I would have nothing to offer. So seeing it, it can be seen as a weakness and it can also be seen as a strength. Um, so yeah, so in particular, you look at the orphan, how it's developed over the years, and this also gets manifested in relationships. Whenever there's a breakup, even if you do the breaking up, there's this sense of abandonment. And in fact, other archetypes come into play, such as the destroyer, where you will unconsciously do something to self-sabotage your relationship because you feel you're not worthy. And then the orphan will then recognize, see, I'm not worthy. And it's this vicious cycle. So like I said, I didn't choose this. I happened to see this in when I was doing the work, when I was doing the in the meditation center, and I realized how important it was because um, most people, especially in today's age and men, have a repressed orphan, so they're not even aware of it.
Mhm.
And then the innocent side, I like to think orphan and innocent because they're the both like child. They're created during the childhood stage, and also they can be related to as children. The innocent is this naiveness and this
Mhm.
like not knowing and this not wanting to take responsibility. So not stepping into one's power would be the dark side of it. It's always like giving the responsibility to someone
Yeah.
else. It's the one that's saying, "Oh, I don't know how to do that. What are you talking about?" It's always like deferring and avoiding, but it also has a very beautiful light side, which is part of the sacred play. It's the curiosity. It's the seeing the world as new every time,
Mm.
asking inquisitive questions, um, believing believing that everyone is innately good. Like starting off, like every time you meet someone, there isn't that judgment, and that comes as a
Yes,
child where
yes,
you're
yes, yes.
accepting that. So for me, those two archetypes really, really stood out, and I feel that if you work on those two archetypes, the other 10 are a lot easier to work with. The other parts of the subconscious are easier to work with.
Wow, that was so deep and intricate. Thank you so, so much.
You're welcome.
That was really great. And you're only 30 years old.
I'm only 30 years old. Yes,
You're
only 30
you're
years old.
you're deep, my brother. You're so deep.
Mm.
It's lovely to have you.
Thank
Um,
you, brother.
so Michael, why men?
Hmm. Again, I don't know. That's a good question. But um, I think in particular, from joining the men's circle, um, I've been part of this men's circle for a year now, and I've created very strong friendships and connections and relationships. But even before that, when I was traveling in Thailand, I actually co-facilitated and participated in men's circles in Pai, Thailand, and it was life changing. It's just like, um, yeah, there's something about I would say like in the most basic way, there's something about a man expressing his emotions, specifically anger and sadness. So crying and rage at their most cathartic, at the most expressive, deep expression with another man, that's just super healing. Like when you can let down your boundaries, when you can let down your guard, when you can be vulnerable with other men, um, yeah, I mean, I've just experienced it myself. I've seen other men go through it. It is just very, very powerful. And and also there's like this acknowledgement that, I'm a man, and even though I connect very deeply with my divine feminine, that knowing how I can best serve other men,
Mhm, mhm.
um, and knowing that I can serve women as well. But yeah, like I said, there seems to be a calling because I feel that men need it most. I feel that we are in a stage right now where, like, as a man, if you don't evolve, you're going to be left behind, and it's not their fault. As as um, as children and growing up in our society, I don't know how it is where you were from, but there's no longer this rite of passage of becoming a man. Like, in ancient tribes and Native Americans, there'd be a vision quest, and there's ceremonies and rituals where men are taken and shown those three things. Like they're shown inner child, they're shown how they're shown sacred play, they're shown sacred sexuality. In lots of cultures, especially African cultures, uh, men, boys at teenage age are taught how to make love, and this was never taught to me. So I feel like men in Western culture, and I would say even around the world, just in modern society, have been left behind, have been sold short. Like it's not our fault, it's not their fault that they're like this. Like they weren't given the opportunity.
Wow, wow.
So I would love to step into that role where, um, again, I'm just figuring this out just like you. Like I'm in this process, and I think that's the most beautiful part is the process. Like this idea that there's a perfect human being or a perfect man is just, it's not realistic. It's not beneficial. I think there's also a very strong bond between men that is being neglected. Um, so as men, sometimes we don't have close friendships with other men, like whatever it may be. So this working with men and men's circles and men's work allows you to have this connection. And what's beautiful about it is that when you have this foundation and this support from your fellow men and your brothers, and you can learn from each other, you can then bring that back into all your other relationships, your
Absolutely,
intimate,
absolutely,
yeah, your intimate relationships, your relationships with your kids, your relationship with your parents, your relationship with your
absolutely.
friends. Um, yeah, so I just see the ripple effect. Like by me helping men, I can serve other people. By me helping men, I am now helping the women they choose to be with. Or if they like men, I'm serving the other men. Like by helping men, I'm helping whoever they interact with.
Mm.
Um, yeah, helping them grow and heal and connect. Um, yeah, I
I
hope
couldn't.
that answers the question.
Oh, it's much more deeper than I could have asked for. Something you said that was so powerful was it's not their fault. And
Mm,
something in my own work, aside of this, is bringing that awareness to what society calls toxic masculinity.
hmm
I feel that men have become so labeled as toxic that everybody's forgotten that a lot of the actions they project are not their fault. They don't have that natural, healthy rite of passage, that nurturing. I resonate with you when you say that father wounding is very powerful for a man. When there's that expectation of a man to be a man and he's 4 years old, it really cripples a lot of your playfulness and your openness and
mm,
your connection with other men, right?
yes.
So I feel that toxic masculinity thing, when you said that it's not their fault, I know a lot of people might not agree because they expect people to know. And that whole expectation thing is causing society to have big crutches that we're leaning on now and that are not very stable in terms of unity and growth and healing because we are products of our childhood, right? If
Yes.
that if that childhood was if that love and attunement wasn't there, it's very difficult for a man to grow up fully confident and self-aware in his masculine energy. And then we project all those fears and insecurities, and it gets labeled toxic, right? I don't know how you
hmm
feel about that.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think specifically that word, every time I hear it, I'm just like, look at who's pointing the finger. Like, always, like, anytime you're labeling another person as toxic, it's a time to pause and to reflect. Where is that coming from? Like, it has to be a projection. It doesn't mean that you justify someone's actions or behaviors, but
Absolutely.
um, they're capable of so much more. You have this trust in their inner nature. And yeah, I personally don't like that word. I don't think labeling men like that is of any, I like to use immature masculine because that's what it is. It hasn't matured
Yeah.
to what it could potentially be. It hasn't ripened
Yeah.
to to its full potential.
I like that. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree. And like it's also a topic of like hearing in relationships. Everyone's past partner was either a narcissist or bipolar. There's always this criticism that's being projected outwards. And it's like, what is that saying about yourself? That doesn't mean that the person doesn't have narcissistic qualities or
Mm-hmm.
characteristics, or that they're not doing, their behavior is not bad. My teacher would say that never trust the behaviors, but always trust the being. Always trust the nature of that being. So yeah, behaviors are toxic, but that's not who you are.
Yeah.
That's your behaviors don't make up who you are, and that's what's so beautiful about this journey is that you have the ability to recognize these behaviors and transform them, and that's what the archetypes are. Like there's many ways of looking at them. I think I think it's good to look at them in a way that's more relatable to you. You can see them as these uh, characters. Like I know you told me to watch the Finding Joe movie, which Joseph Campbell talks about. I didn't see it all, but I'm familiar with his work, and
Okay.
just this idea of like mythology and characters, and seeing them as like even entities. I think if that helps you, that's a good way to see it. But in reality, all they are is just repetitive emotional behavioral patterns that have taken that have been going on since the beginning of time, since before you were even born. These patterns have been running on loop. So you're kind of like thrown into these patterns already, and then you're made to seem responsible. And it's like, and that's where the innocence comes in. It's like, it's not your fault, but you can take responsibility to change and transform it. Yeah.
What does it take to take responsibility, Michael?
Woo. Okay. So again, responsibility is a beautiful word, and I'm taking this from Sadhguru. I don't know if you're familiar with Sadhguru.
I love him. Yeah.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Amazing. Amazing.
I do a lot of his practices.
Me too. Me too. I do
Yeah.
his meditations and yoga. Yeah.
hmm
Great.
And I took his inner engineering course, and he talks about this outside of his inner engineering course, but he defines responsibility as the ability to respond. So for me, taking responsibility is knowing that at any given moment, you have the ability to respond instead of react. And it's that simple. I think when you start taking responsibility as obligation or this duty that I need to or should do something is where the trouble starts, because you don't need to or do anything. You don't have any obligation to anyone. But you do always have the ability to respond. So I think coming back to that, and I'm saying this out loud even as a reminder to myself, because I
Mhm.
fall into this trap all this time of thinking that responsibility is a duty and an
Yes.
obligation.
Yes.
And responsibility is just it's a birthright. It's intuitive. It's your ability to respond. So um, so knowing that at any given moment, if you're learning about archetype work or shadow work or something difficult is happening, that, okay, at this moment, my ability to respond, how do I choose to respond to this? I don't want this to affect my life anymore. How can I respond in a positive way? And obviously, you're going to go through lots of trial and error, because it is a process. But I think it's like making that decision with your ability to respond, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And would you say that you can do this work on your own?
0%. No way. No way. I think that's I mean, for me, the biggest thing that I'm calling in for 2021 is community.
I love that.
And yeah, and I think that is the future and the truth of our society. Like, to break down this idea of us versus them and this
Yeah.
99% and 1%, and start living how we used to in tribes
Mhm.
and communities, and locally trade and support each other and create all inclusive spaces instead of exclusivity, inclusiveness.
Yeah.
And I'm saying this because you ask if you can do it alone. And what's what's fascinating about humans is that we're one of the few creatures who can survive individually and socially. You know, we're social and we're like a wolf.
Yes.
Strangely enough, they're one of our closest friends and closest related to in DNA as well. Um, why am I saying this? Okay, so if you can do it alone.
Yes. Yes.
So for me, I think that's a great thing to know off the bat that it's okay to ask for help, especially as a man. It's much needed. Like um, I'm pretty sure Jungian says this. You know, Carl Jung says this that you learn in relationship by with being someone else. Like you learn about your projections and your patterns because you're projecting this onto others. If you
Mm.
didn't have other beings, you would have no idea what you were
No.
projecting. You had no idea what to work on. And that's why relationships really are, for me, the biggest catalyst to growth. Intimate relationships, friendships, community, when you're able to interact with another human being, that's where most growth happens. That doesn't mean that there isn't benefit to going into a cave and meditating for 12 years, how many
Absolutely.
uh, sadhus and spiritual beings and gurus have done. Um, I will also say they did it in a time where it was a lot more accessible. I do think that with the technology and with social media and with the state of our climate, and I say climate in all aspects of our environment, not just weather, not just Mother
Mm-hmm.
Earth, but political, everything, that yeah, we need each other. This is the time, like everything is telling us to separate and isolate, especially during COVID, like to not get together. And I think it makes a lot of sense why they're saying that, because there's a very big yearning right now to unite. And in that union, there's so much power. When we combine in that union, there's no way someone else can control you.
Absolutely.
You're now free. You find freedom through connection, and that's just my direct experience and my opinion. Um, and like I said, that being said, I feel that a lot of work does have to be done in solitude.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And okay, I guess we could go deep on that, but we'll keep it there. And I'd like to ask you, what's your vision for the future? What do you? I
Mm,
know you spoke about communities, and what are you hoping to bring with your work and your purpose?
that's a great question. Hmm. Yeah. My vision for the future is to first and foremost is to share my gifts, to continue sharing my process unconditionally, and to work through that process, like I was mentioning before, of that imposter syndrome, working through the self doubts, and by doing so, allowing other human beings to do the same. And what it would look like for me is, like I said, is ideally is, yeah, people creating communities where we are empowering each other, and there isn't a hierarchy, there isn't a patriarchy. We are there's innate leadership in there.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's people who are meant to be leaders and others who are better at following. That doesn't make
Okay.
you better or worse, but it's way above democracy. Like
Yes.
democracy is an illusion where you only have two choices and you're left out, like the abundance of choices that are out there besides left or right, besides black and white. So like changing this idea of how we think, how we connect with human beings, and a lot of that in my vision has to do again with movements. Um, where you're no longer going to a gym to lift weights, where you're now going into a space where people move together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is called movement culture, which was the idea was suggested, I don't want to say invented, it's suggested by Ido Portal. I don't know if
Okay.
you've heard of him,
No.
but
No.
I train under his lineage. And yeah, that idea that moving by yourself is good, but moving with community is 10 times more is better, because you learn from them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, my vision is like a crazy radical vision of like communities everywhere moving and dancing and expressing their true nature, however that's manifested. whether it be sitting down in meditation stillness or screaming on the top of their lungs, expressing their animalistic nature, um,
Mm.
learning about sexuality and not having it be taboo, learning how to have better relationships, learning how to have better communication. Um, yeah, I know it's very general right now, and I want to pinpoint it, but at the same time, I don't want to limit myself. I want to, I also want to help other beings like yourself who are already on this path. And how can I be of service to you? How can I be of service to your community? And like, let this ripple out this effect of knowing that, yeah, like you said before we started, that we're complete, we're perfect just as we are, and that there's really nothing we need to do. And if we see that in ourselves and each other, everything else will be taken care of.
So beautiful. I'd just like to say, I don't find anything crazy about that vision. I think it's powerful, it's therapeutic, it's unifying, and I don't know what context crazy came in, but I wouldn't even put crazy in any context in that because
Mm.
as you said, it sounded so beautiful and so powerful. Um, so that was great. Thank you so much for that really emphatic hope that you're bringing to the world, right? Because everybody
Mm.
benefits in the collective conscious. We all benefit. You heal one person, and the whole consciousness heals, right?
Correct.
So and what about now? What's your drive now? What's behind your movement?
Hmm. Yeah, I think it keeps on going back to community and connection. It's just like this is my first time living on my own in 30 years. I've always lived with roommates or have it, whatever it may be, and then nomadically and all that. And I love having my own space. I really do. I think it's beautiful. That being said, it makes me realize that as human beings, we are meant to live in community. We are meant to live with other people. Like even just like 2, 3 generations ago, there was you could go into someone's house and find 3, 4 generations in one home. And this is particularly true in Hispanic culture too. And even now, not as much, but still.
Yes.
So yeah, like this for me, what drives me now is like, yeah, this yearning to connect deeply and authentically, like that I can go out into the street and have a conversation with another human being and not talk about the weather and not talk about like, hey, how are you? Like really deeply connect with every being that I interact with, um, to share my gifts and to know that I am this divine being, that I'm here to shine and to like keep on reclaiming that sovereignty, that majesticness, that like idea that we are so special, we are such amazing beings. The idea that what we're doing right now, like we're using 1% of our potential power, and so yeah, for me, what drives me is just like every single interaction I have, and a lot of that has to do with community and connection. And as far as like my movement practice is like, it's just changed my life. It's just the way I see it. Can I give you like a little summary of the
Please,
movement practice? Yeah.
please, please.
So I'm sure your audience will, some of them will know about them, some of them won't. I wholeheartedly recommend you check out Ido Portal. He's not the only one who does this, but he started this movement. It's called movement culture. And I think one of the basis of it, I'd like to say, is this three-pronged theory of learning zones, which is
Hmm.
isolation, integration, improvisation.
Okay.
And this is not linear. It can be
Hmm.
linear as a teaching tool, but it's how you approach any given moment. And for
Okay.
this, we use movements. So you learn a specific movement and you're new at it. You've never done it before. This is the isolation part. You're isolating it, and in this stage of learning, we like to call this the suck zone. You suck at it. You're
Okay.
horrible and you're uncomfortable, and it's in that stage where you grow the most
Absolutely.
physically, spiritually, emotionally, your neural pathways, you're literally creating
Absolutely.
thousands of new neural pathways when you're challenged to do something you've never done and you start
Absolutely.
figuring it out. Even even if you don't figure it out, weirdly enough, like with people who learn how to juggle compared to someone who doesn't learn how to juggle but still goes through the process, they're still building the same gray matter. So it's just putting your body through this learning situation. And I think this is particularly true with embodiment practices because you can like read a book or you can do something where you're only using the logical side of your brain and it won't have that effect.
Mhm.
So, so the theory here is you go from isolation. Once you've learned it enough, you integrate it. You're now at the level of competency and starting to become good at it. And then there's improvisation where you're no longer, you now have taken those tools and you're able to adapt to the moment and use them how it best is suited for that moment.
Mhm.
And he, Ido Portal claims and prophesizes and says that that's why it's so important to not specialize, like gymnasts or basketball players or whoever that just do one thing over and over, because you after a while you're no longer in that first stage of learning, that uncomfortable isolation stage. So to always go back to learning new
Mhm.
things,
Mhm.
and that way you're always building new neural pathways. So this is an idea, not a success, but an idea of enjoying the process, like truly
Okay.
enjoying the process. So for me, it's changed my life. Like every time, well, most of the time I'm in a situation in life, I'm able to use that application like, oh, this really sucks. I'm uncomfortable. Why is that? Oh, maybe because I don't have any information about this. I'm new to this. This means that I'm growing. How can I use this to my advantage? I now like I'm in class and I'm doing something and I suck at it and now I can laugh at myself. And I'm not only laughing at myself, but communities around and they're supporting and we're laughing together and we're building each other up. So there's just this there's just this really crucial aspect right there when you're in community and you fail at something. It's this allowing of vulnerability, and in that
Absolutely.
space magic happens.
Absolutely.
Not to mention the movement practice itself, the longevity. It's so much fun. Like I said, we do different things every day. We use items and tools that you would never imagine to use that are I wholeheartedly recommend it. um, yeah, I love it, and I try to embody it in my coaching as well. It's a little bit hard to teach
Mhm.
online. It is much more of a community and in-person aspect, and it's a little harder with COVID. um, that being said, just that aspect of always willing to put yourself in uncomfortable situations and to know that that's how you're going to grow the most is, I say, is
Absolutely.
what I take the most out of that practice.
Thank you so, so much. That's so beautiful. You're making me now think that I have to try something because I'm so also rigid in some of my thinking and habits. I'm working on coming out of my comfort zones, but
Hmm.
it was very powerful what you said, and you're speaking directly to me there, not to the audience. So thanks for that.
You're welcome.
um, um, okay, so Michael, last second last question that I'd like to ask you. What would you say? You're still young, but what would you say to your 15-year-old self?
What would I say to my 15-year-old self?
Hmm.
Ooh, I would say that I love you so much, that you're absolutely perfect just the way you are. Um, I would say that there's no need to believe these insecurities, to follow your passions. Um, my 15-year-old self. I was in 10th grade. Yeah, like that, to not try to fit in, to not try to people please. That this idea of like high school and the school system and this idea of having like cliques and friends is all a facade, and it's all an illusion, and that your true joy is going to come in like living your truth and expressing your what you're passionate about. And yeah, I would tell myself like don't worry about like getting a job after school. Um, don't worry about like thinking about what you're gonna do in college, and like go and try new things every day. Go explore, go play, go dance, man. If I was dancing when I was 15, I mean I was definitely dancing, but nothing like I am now. If I was dancing back then, it would have changed my life. Like to have an outlet, I would have definitely gone into dancing as a maybe as an art or as a anything like just be more curious, challenge myself, get out of my comfort zone. Um, don't be so um don't be so like caught up in like women and trying to have sex, and learn more how to connect. And I mean, there's so much I would say. I could have a 20-day conversation with my 15-year-old self. At the end of the day, I had to go through those experiences to be where I am right now. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for them.
I feel you just healed a little bit, another small part of your inner child there. There was some power in that. And what would you say to your future self?
Hmm. What would I say to my future self?
Mm. 20 years from now, you see yourself 20 years from now, what would you say?
20 years from now, I'd be 50 years old. Whew. What would I say to myself from this perspective? Hmm. I would just say to continue trusting the process, and that yeah, to not let others influence what you want to do in life. And like, I mean, I guess I would say how proud I am and how much I love that version of myself, because I would see myself, my vision in 20 years would be that while I'm still going through the process of growing, because I think it's a never ending process in some format. Um, yeah, I'd be so proud of all that I've accomplished, and all the people that I've been able to help, and the communities that I've been able to build and help build, and the communities I've been part of. And um, I could be like, wow, like I could die right then and there and be completely content with the life that I lived. So kind of just like this reassurance of like everything that I've done in these next 20 years, and everything that's happened the past 30 years, what didn't go to waste. Like there's so much beauty to it, and that I lived a fulfilling, purposeful life, and just express my gratitude for that being, and how much love there is. And yeah.
Thank you. That was awesome. Um, is there anything you'd like to say from your heart to men who are stuck stuck in their wounded inner child and aren't aware? And is there something you wish to share to help bring some awareness, to help them maybe open up a little bit into looking at a different way to be?
Hmm. I think first and foremost, just saying again, I think this needs to be reiterated um, that it's not your fault that we were given this false blueprint of what a man is supposed to be, and you're following that blueprint, and the reason it's not working is because that's not what a real man is. So you're in constant conflict with your nature, with your divine masculine and your divine feminine, by living out this prototype of a immature masculine, and this what society makes a man out to be. um, to know that you're not alone, and that you can always reach out, and that there's so much power and strength in reaching out. There's so much power in being vulnerable. um, I mean, yeah, there's so much power in getting coaching. I think in today's day, like, I mean, another reason I became a coach is because I've received such amazing coaching myself.
Hmm.
Like, I've had such amazing mentors. So just like completely recognizing that it's not your fault, that you have the ability to change, that you can reach out, you can ask for help. And for me particularly, I realized this in the reading this morning, where she asked me, why do like my avoidance patterns when I have this, when the inner child is hurt, which usually comes up when I'm in connection, when I feel grounded and connected with my being. And this is usually when I'm surrounded by people that I love or community. And then I leave that space and I'm now by myself and I don't have that external validation. The inner child is seeking that external validation
Hmm.
and it feels sad, it feels abandoned. And right there is the beautiful opportunity to nurture your inner child. And what tends to happen is there's avoidance mechanisms. I'll put on music or I'll watch TV or anything that we use to escape. And she said, this pattern is just, it's all you've ever known. As when you were a little child and you didn't get the love you deserved and you felt abandoned, like that was your parents, like they were not giving you that. Now you are replaying that with the distraction. That
Hmm.
feeling of being abandoned is coming up and you're like, nope, I don't
I
want
don't
to
want
deal
to
with
feel it.
this.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. So that, to recognize um that your avoidance patterns are completely normal. Like you're doing that because that's all you know. And by bringing that to the conscious light, I am now able to see as like I have one more moment in between me doing this avoidance mechanism. Like, do I want to keep on doing the same thing that's been replaying in my life? And I don't. I want to heal my inner child. I want to be happy. So, sometimes you need another individual to reflect that. You
Hmm.
need another individual to show you that. And again, that's where the growing happens, is when we're able to project onto another being and reflect what is being seen. Um, so yeah, I hope that all makes sense. So yeah, I mean, mainly to like reach out and to know how important brotherhood is, and to know you're not alone, and that like you're worthy. You're worthy of so much, is what I would have to say.
My brother, you are a real inspiration. I'm sitting here. I do similar work to you, inner child work, and I'm sitting here, and I'm 42. So there's that thing about, oh, he's a young lad, but you blew me away. So thanks thanks so much for connecting with me, touching my heart. Uh, Nothing you said went through my head. Everything went into the body. So very emphatic and very moving. I really, really thank you. I love you for what you're
Mm,
doing, who you are, and what you're bringing to this world and this conscious that needs so much more of what you're bringing. I send you love, light on your journey to never lose sight of that big vision you have, you know.
mm,
And if ever you need any support, you need a friend, you need a community, you got me.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. I really appreciate that. All your beautiful words and having me on this platform and everything you've shared and the questions you've asked. And thank you. I feel the same way. I love you very much. I love the work that you're doing as well, even though we only know each other through Instagram. Um, I look forward to connecting more. And I think these are the type of conversations that we can be having every single day, with everyone we interact with. So it's an inspiration as well. So I thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. Okay. Thank you for watching, everybody. I hope you really enjoyed this. If you need any more information, you want to talk, you want to dance, please reach out to Michael. His contact details will be at the end of the show. And I thank you all for your support, and I wish you all love and light in all you do.
Mm.